Welcome to tutorial 13. Today we go back into some theory to understand some more information about a relationship between two different notes on a sheet and how we can justify changes in pitch or how to address one note with respect to another one. So some of the concepts used to do that in music are called accidentals, steps and intervals. For intervals, we're going to go into a quick intro in this tutorial. There's going to be a detailed session for intervals later on, but this time we're just going to go through the sections that we need to understand accidentals and steps also. So let's get started. Accidentals, you have seen this before in this tutorial series. In G major scale, you know that the F note is an F sharp, but accidentals, definition wise, it means symbol that temporarily indicates alteration of a given pitch. So if you have a note in a measure somewhere, and for the duration of that note, if you need to play the sharp or the flat uh, note for that one, you can use an accidental symbol as shown over here. So the flat symbol and sharp symbol you guys are pretty aware of, but the natural symbol is something that you don't come across often, and we're gonna see when that's also being used when referring to accidentals in sheet music. So let's take a look at that table over there. It's some examples that you have for C and F sharp. Like C flat is how you'll write that if you have to play a C flat accidental in the sheet music. The result note is going to be the B note because that's just what C flat is, but you could also refer to it as C flat. Remember, any note on the keyboard can be a sharp or a flat to some other note. In terms of sheet music notation and dictating scales out loud, sometimes you will refer to it as C flat instead of a B note. Similarly, you have C sharp over there, C and the sharp symbol next to it, it's just C sharp. Sometimes it would be D flat, same note. And then you have C natural. Natural of any note is just itself. So C natural is going to be just C. Flats and sharps for a sharp note will have that sharp note and then the accidental attached to it. So an F sharp flat is like technically it's an F. You still have to write the whole thing out loud if you are uh, referring to it as an accidental in the sheet. So it's going to be an F sharp flat, and an F sharp sharp is going to be G. The result note is obvious, but still in terms of notations you do have to maintain it as a sharp of the sharp note. And F sharp natural obviously is going to be F sharp. If you see here, you have the C note in the top diagram starting from the left, a simple C note, right? Then you have the C flat, denoted by the flat symbol. Now, if you do want to come back to playing C in that measure, you have to put a natural sign next to the next C note. If you don't put that natural sign and there's no accidental over there, it by default is referred to as a flat for C. So the second C flat, the second note C, which has a flat symbol next to it, it just maintains that for the rest of the measure, the note has to be played in flat, unless you explicitly mention it's coming back to natural or it's going to another accidental, which would be C sharp or C flat flat or something like that. So the third one is a C natural, and that's just saying, okay, no more flats, we're just going to play C natural now. And then C sharp, the one after this, as you already aware, that's the sharp symbol. That's how you would denote a C sharp accidental in the sheet music. The diagrams below show you more examples of accidentals. Flat flat is an accidental as well. I think C flat flat are accidental would be A sharp or B flat note. Some music theory sheets you will come across those symbols flat flat and sharp sharp. They're just present there, but that's not the same as an F sharp sharp if F sharp was already a note in the scale. For example, if you had the G major scale and you had an F sharp note in there and you want to maintain a sharp accidental for that, you would still write an F sharp sharp. It's like more or less it's the same, but it's about the notations, it's about how you represent that accidental on the sheet. Intro to intervals. Like I said, we're not going to go into a lot of detail with intervals. We just need to know what intervals really are. Distance between two notes, including the first note. So if you take a look at the diagram below, with the first note, there's only one notation over there. But if you were to play the exact same note at the same time, like for example, two pianos playing the same middle C at the same time, that would be first interval. There's no real space between a note and itself, so it's just the first interval. The second note, let's see, you have a C note over there and then there's a D note. The interval is second degree in this case because you have the C note and then you're going to play the D after that. Third is the C and E note. The fourth is C and F, and so on and so forth. Some intervals have special names. So an interval for itself is just a unison, like two notes, the two exact same notes being played, it's a unison. uh, an interval 8 steps up is going to be the same note, and that's what we call an octave. Here you have perfect fourth and perfect fifth as an interval special name. These are just going to be common terminologies, and that's why it's mentioned over here. We will go into a lot more detail in a future lesson to understand more about intervals, but for now we just need to know that the intervals are space between two notes, including the first note. Steps, this is basically where the magic happens. As half step is the immediate next note, which is a sharp note, if you may, and a half step down is the immediate previous note, which is a flat note. So if you take a C note, the half step up is C sharp and the half step down is B. Whole step is the same thing, just two notes instead of one. So if you take the C note, the whole step is D whole step up, and whole step down is A sharp or B flat. And major and minor scales can be expressed as formula of half and whole steps. The diagram below is just examples of three different categories of notes. I take C over here as the first example because the note right before C is B and you don't really have a sharp over there, and that's why it could be confusing with the half note and the half step down and the whole step down. You can see in the examples what the result notes are for all of those things. Then you have the F sharp or the G flat. Remember, any note on the keyboard or in music is a sharp or a flat to some other note. So I'm just using that notations as an example over here to give you more clarity into the concept. But technically, all of these notes could be mentioned as a sharp or a flat of something else. The A note over there is as provided as an example for you to see that the half steps up and down are going to be sharp or flat notes like the black keys on the keyboard, and the whole steps are just going to be the white keys or natural notes. As mentioned before, a major scale or a minor scale can be expressed as a formula of whole or half steps. So take a look at the second point. It says a major scale can be expressed in steps using the following formula. You have whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. You have a formula for minor scale also, but we will come back to that formula and test it out once we have done your first minor scale in this series. Now take a look at the table over here. You have an example of the example of formula being applied to the C major scale. Let's see if it works, right? With the first note, you're not going to have a step over there. The second note is D, which is a whole step to C because you go from C to C sharp to D, so that's two notes. Then you have a whole step again, which is E. Then you have a half step because the immediate note after E is F, so you have a half step. Then you have a whole step to G, you have a whole step to A, another whole step to B, and then you have a half step to C. So the half step at the end really doesn't matter because it's just coming back to the first note again. It's just completion, it's a resolution, it just feels nice. I encourage you to try this formula out yourself with the G major scale, see if it fits. I know it will. I just want you to try it and see if you understand the concepts properly. And then we shall again try the whole formula for minor scale once we have done your first minor scale. But now that you know two major scales, this is a trivia question for you, or maybe extra homework if you're interested. Um, Try to find a major scale for any note using the formula that I have just mentioned. Technically, at this point, you should know every major scale by applying the formula. We'll still go through them in the tutorial series, but it is good to know that theory can be applied, and that way you can make music predictable. That's what makes learning fun with music. In the next lesson, we're going to try to apply some of these concepts in song. So you have a theoretical and practical understanding of these concepts, and we will try to explore more scales using the given formulas. So, see you in the next lesson.